Good afternoon, everyone. This is Valerie Edgeworth. I'm one of the CE consultants here at KDLA, and I am your presenter today for Introduction to Kentucky Land Records. Here with me today is Alicia McGrath, our CE supervisor here at KDLA. She'll be taking care of the chat for me. If you've got any questions during today's presentation, go ahead and type them into the chat box. We'll kind of deal with questions as they come or save them for the end, just depending upon where we are. But don't hesitate to go ahead and chat in any questions about the presentation today. And with that information, we're going to go ahead and get started. Introduction to Kentucky Land Records. Kentucky is blessed, cursed, however you want to look at it, with 120 counties. And based on its history, everybody kind of wanted a piece of Kentucky. And so we're going to kind of start there and talk about the land patents and the land grants and how Kentucky came about. There's a couple of resources we're going to use heavily today. The first is called The Kentucky Land Grants by Willard Rouse Gilson. Several of you probably have Gilson's Index to Kentucky Land Grants available in your collection. The second resource that we are going to use today is what's referred to as the Kentucky Land Office. It is an office of the Secretary of State. They are located in the Capitol Annex, and many of the resources that I'm going to describe today, or the process of land records in Kentucky, come from their website. I highly encourage you to check out their website, as many of these patent series are now digitally available and are completely searchable online. So make sure you check out the Kentucky Land Office on the Secretary of State's website. Gilson's Index was the very first index to Kentucky land grants. It's a standard reference work and contains the abstracts of approximately 150,000 Kentucky land grants for the entire period that covers 1782 to 1924. And this is typically the first book that any researcher for Kentucky ancestors and land will use. It's arranged alphabetically according to the type of grant. It provides the full name of the grantee, the number of acres, the date of the survey, name of the county, water courses if they were known, and the volume and page number of the original entry. This book is currently out of print, and it's in pretty high demand. But like I said, most of you probably do have this book in your collection. As my second bullet point here also states, this index and Gilson's information is all available for free on Ancestry.com. So some researchers still prefer the books, but if you have access to Ancestry from your library, you'll be able to access Gilson's index work that way as well. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cover the land patenting process. I'm going to give you a little overview of the entire process, and then we're going to break down each part. The Virginia Land Law of 1779 required the establishment of a land office for claims to property in what was then called Kentucky County, Virginia. When Kentucky separated from Virginia in 1792, the Kentucky General Assembly voted to maintain the land office. All documents pertaining to the patents in Kentucky were transported by wagon from Virginia to Frankfort before 1800. Since Kentucky is considered a state land state, this means that land appropriation is handled on the state level. The patent process remains the method of land appropriation for property within Kentucky today. Kentucky does not have property subject to claim under the federal land program. If you have a researcher who is interested in information regarding the federal land programs, you would have them contact the Bureau of Land Management. If you just Google Bureau of Land Management, their website will come up. It's also important to note that the Kentucky State Land Office cannot provide a listing of properties subject to sale for collection of delinquent taxes. In those instances, you would have them contact their local property valuation administrator, their PVA, to make those determinations on the county level. Okay, diving into the land patenting process. Patenting refers to the system of land appropriation used to transfer land from the Commonwealth to an individual or group of individuals. The patent process consists of 4 steps, and you'll see all 4 of those listed here. And I have an example of a warrant next to the slide there. First is the warrant authorizing surveys to be made. 2, the second step is entries, which reserves the land for patenting. 3 is the survey, which is the actual field survey describing the meets and bounds, which we'll get into in a little bit. And the governor's grant. It finalizes the patent and conveys the title to the individual. After a grant is issued, subsequent conveyances of the property are filed with deeds and wills on the county level. There is no central registration for deeds in Kentucky. Those are all handled on a county-by-county basis. We here at KDLA do try to microfilm all of the county deed records. Some of those deed records do live here for the early years, but most of them are still on the county level. If you're interested in purchasing deed-related film for your county, I can help you with that process too. Okay. The patenting process was introduced by King George III of England in his proclamation of 1763 as a method of paying veterans of the French and Indian War. That same system of awarding bounty land to veterans was adopted after the Revolutionary War. The Virginia Law of 1779 expanded the land patent system to include warrants other than those issued for military service. In totality, military warrants comprise only a very small percentage of Kentucky land patents. Other patents that were authorized are treasury warrants, certificates of settlement, preemption warrants, and acts of the General Assembly. And again, we're going to try to cover all of these in detail. So, here's our 4 steps again: warrants, entries, survey, and the governor's grant. Okay, first off, we're going to go into depth about the warrants. The warrant is the first step in the land patenting process. They identify how much land may be surveyed, the reason for the warrant's issuance, the date the warrant was issued, and the name of the warrant purchaser or recipient. Warrants do not identify the location of the land. Warrants can be sold, traded, or reassigned in whole or part. They may be divided to authorize more than one survey of unappropriated land. There are several different types of warrants. Some of these include preemption, treasury, certificates of settlement, warrants for finding salt, or for making a road through the wilderness. Only a small percentage of Kentucky land patents were authorized military warrants. And again, like I said earlier, this system of warrants came from King George in 1763. And several patents were authorized by the French and Indian War warrants, and they are filed in the Kentucky Land Office. After the Revolutionary War, the United States adopted the same method of awarding bounty land to soldiers as payment for military service. Again, the Virginia Land Law of 1779 set aside a portion of southwest Kentucky as a military district for soldiers who had served out of Virginia. After 1792, Virginia veterans had to use their military warrants in the Ohio Military District along the Little Miami River. County commissioners issued warrants, certificates to applicants who met age and residency required under the South Green River Series. And we're going to break down all of the series of land grants after we discuss the 4 processes of obtaining a land grant. On December 21st, 1820, the Kentucky General Assembly approved legislation for the benefit of poor widows with numerous helpless children destitute of homes. Widows were allowed up to 100 acres of land. Fees and taxes were not assessed on this life estate. Many Kentucky patents were authorized by the acts of the General Assembly. An example would be the Act for the Relief of Certain Poor Persons and other acts awarding land to certain individuals. In some cases, the General Assembly authorized warrants to be sold by county commissioners appointed to oversee academies and seminaries and roads and construction projects. Kentucky's early infrastructure was funded by the sale of vacant and unappropriated land. When researching patents, study copies of all available records, including the warrant. This will help you determine why and to whom the warrant was issued. Although the warrant may differ in form, the purpose was still the same. The document authorized a survey or surveys. Okay, moving ahead to the second step here for entries. Once the warrant was obtained, a filing was made in the county surveyor's entry book reserving the land for patent. Marginal notations listed the date of entry. The entry could include the name of the person, the type of warrant used, the location of the land to be surveyed, including the closest watercourse if known. Entries also protected applicants' claim until the surveyors plotted the tract of land. Entry books for early Fayette and Lincoln counties are housed in the Secretary of State's office. The original entry books for Jefferson County are located at the Jefferson County Archives in Louisville. Surveyors' entry books for counties formed out of Jefferson, Lincoln, and Fayette are still kept on the local level. Some are available from the county surveyor or county clerk, but most of them would be available here at KDLA. Moving on to surveys. Survey is the third step in the land patenting process. The survey certificate includes a plat drawing and a description of the property. Surveys could be traded, sold, or reassigned at any time during the patenting process. Researchers should always check the back of the survey of the document, or the back of the survey document, for possible assignments. I've included the back of the survey document here. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It has the name of the entry and the warrant and the number and just the date that the survey was completed. The Jackson Purchase is the only area in Kentucky that was mapped in ranges, townships, and sections. The remainder of the state used the meets and bounds system. Meets defines distance, usually in poles. Bounds defines the next corner or point. Trees, stakes, or rocks are frequently cited in the survey description. And surveys may include the following. Here's an example of a survey that was actually completed by Daniel Boone. The survey may include the name of the person who made the survey, the county in which the land is located, type and identification number of warrants along with any previous owners of the warrant, if applicable, again, the nearest watercourse information if known, the meets and bound description, and it may include information on adjacent property owners as well. It'll include the date of the survey, the signature of the surveyor, the names of the surveying party, and the back of the survey may include assignments, the patent number, and the date of the grant issuance. I think this is my favorite slide of the entire presentation, and the slides, as well as a couple of additional helpful handouts, will be made available at the end. Here are the survey measurements. This is a separate page on the Land Office's website, and this gives you the equivalent today of what some of these measurements were. One pole or rod equal to 16.5 feet or 25 lengths. One link is 0.66 feet or 7.92 inches. One chain is equal to 100 links, 4 rods, or 66 feet. 80 chains was 1 mile, 320 rods, 1,760 yards, or 5,280 feet. 1 acre was equal to 10 square chains, 160 square rods, 4,840 square feet, or 43,560 square feet. Excuse me, the 4,840 was square yards. 1 square mile equaled 1 section of land, or 640 acres, and the township 36 square miles, or 36 mile square sections. This alone, as Alicia just said, makes your head spin, and is one of the reasons that trying to find these original patents, land patents, and understand the exact locations of the property can be quite frustrating. The tree, the stake, or the rock may have been moved in the last 250 years, so it can be quite frustrating, and the water may no longer exist either. I've had that happen in the past. Okay, continuing on with surveying. Under the Virginia Land Law of 1779, a Fincastle or Kentucky County, Virginia resident prior to January 1778 could purchase a 400-acre certificate of settlement if he or she had built a cabin or planted a crop. An additional 1,000 acres adjacent to the settlement tract could be patented by purchasing a preemption warrant. Again, like I said earlier, the Jackson Purchase in western Kentucky was mapped by townships, ranges, and sections. Surveyors and engineers are so important to our Commonwealth's history. Countless entries and survey descriptions include notations and drawings of the great importance of the history of the Commonwealth. Some of these descriptions that they provide as surveyors are it's just truly remarkable. Okay, moving ahead and looking at the last step, the actual grants. Issuance of the governor's grant finalizes the land patenting transaction. The document names the person receiving the patent, any previous assignments, the type of warrant used, warrant number, the date of the survey, the exact location of the land, the grant date, and the governor's name. I have included a sample here from Governor Beverly Randolph of Virginia for the grant from Thomas Boone that we've been looking at all through the steps here. And this is the final issuance of the grant, because this was before 1792. Kentucky officially conveys title with the issuance of the grant. The landowner receives a signed and sealed document from the state, and a copy of the grant is recorded in the Land Office Grant Book. Any subsequent conveyances or deeds are filed with the county clerk's office. The first governor to issue a grant for land in Kentucky was Thomas Jefferson. While Jefferson was governor of Virginia, the Virginia General Assembly passed the Land Law of 1779, which pertained to the Kentucky Territory. This act had many provisions, including the establishment of a military district in Kentucky for Virginia veterans of the Revolutionary War, the authorization of certificates of settlement and other warrants, and appointment of a land commission to settle title disputes. The Virginia series of Kentucky land patents include several grants approved and signed by Governor Thomas Jefferson, Governor Patrick Henry, and Governor Benjamin Harrison. After the 1792 separation from Virginia, the first patent issued by a Kentucky governor was signed by Isaac Shelby, and I am happy to report that we have several. Those documents are here. We do have the ones signed by Patrick Henry and Thomas Jefferson here at the archives. So if you're ever in town and would like to see those, we would be happy to show you those. We really enjoy them. So kind of a neat little treasure here at KDLA. Okay, first section is done. Any questions at this point? We're going to go over all 9, I did say 9, N-I-N-E, Kentucky Land Patent Series. This is the first page. You will be available to, this available for handout as a separate handout from the presentation at the end. But I just have one slide here giving you the title and general information of each of the series. All right, we're going to move right along then. The patent series indicates what type of warrants were used to authorize surveys. Each of these series is based on a time period and a land location. And like I said, there are 9 major groups. The first 2 groups here are the Virginia series and the Old Kentucky series. Patents in the Virginia and Old Kentucky series were authorized by French and Indian War warrants, Treasury warrants, importation warrants, acts for the relief of certain poor persons, acts for the establishment of academies and seminaries, warrants for finding salt, warrants for clearing roads, certificates of settlement, and preemption warrants. Those are the 2 earliest series of land patents for the state of Kentucky. Next is South of Green River series, and these are grants from 1791 forward. This series opened the military district to settlement by non-veterans. County commissioners approved the issuance of warrants and certificates to residents purchasing no more than 400 acres of unappropriated land. Applicants had to meet age and residency requirements, and they had to have occupied the land for 1 year prior to the application. An improvement, such as a cabin or a crop, was also required. The original 1795 Act of the General Assembly required that the applicant be 21 years of age or older. The minimum age was lowered in 1798 to 18. Due to errors in patenting series assignments, a number of patents in the South of Green River series are located outside of that region, and some are as far north as Pendleton County. Moving on to the Tellico series. These are grants in southeast Kentucky. This area was purchased from the Cherokee Indians in 1805. Under the Act of 1810, settlers meeting the 6-month residency requirement could patent up to 200 acres of land by paying $40 per 100 acres. Due to errors in this series, a number of patents in the Tellico series also fall outside of the Tellico region. Again, anybody's head spinning yet? I know mine is. Moving right along to the Kentucky Land Warrant Series. These are grants from 1850 forward. These warrants were purchased or issued by the Kentucky Land Office. Many were authorized by the General Assembly for the development of Kentucky's infrastructure. A lot of the proceeds from the warrant sales were used to build roads in the Kentucky Land Warrant Series. All right, moving on to South of Walker's Line Series. These are grants from 1820 forward. These patents are located in northern Tennessee. They generally run to the 36-degree, 30-minute parallel, or the baseline of the Jackson Purchase. The Kentucky Land Office has patent records for the following Tennessee counties. Ding, ding, ding. Sumner, Smith, Robertson, Macon, Montgomery, Stewart, Jackson, Claiborne, Clay, Fentress, Pickett, Scott, and Campbell. Again, you're going to get a handout with all of this information on it so that you can pass it on to your researchers. The next series is known as West of Tennessee River Military Series, and these grants were issued from 1821 to 1828. This area was purchased from the Chickasaw Indians in 1818. A number of Revolutionary War soldiers occupied the land now known as the Jackson Purchase area, without having a clear title. In 1820, the Kentucky General Assembly advised the veterans to immediately file for patents. So that's what this series is. The next series, West of Tennessee River Series. These were grants from 1822 to 1900. While Revolutionary War veterans were patenting their land, the Jackson Purchase was being mapped in ranges, townships, and sections. The General Assembly authorized the auctioning of odd sections of the West of Tennessee River area. Sales would be held in Princeton, Kentucky. Upon presentation of the receipt, the register issued a certificate authorizing the grant. In 1825, public sales were authorized in Wadesboro and Callaway County. The state set a minimum price per acre of land for these sales. By 1835, that price had been reduced to 12.5 cents per acre. Aaron, there are some maps. Aaron had a great question about maps where the series are in the state. Yes, I'm going to talk in depth about the Secretary of State, the Land Office website. All of this information came directly from there. They have cheat sheets. They have informational sheets that break every series down, every part of the patenting process down. And after I finish this one last series, we're going to talk about another resource that's very, very helpful. Oh, didn't mean to go forward just yet. The last series to talk about is the County Court Order System. And these grants date from 1835 all the way to the present. In 1835, the General Assembly granted county courts the right to issue warrants authorizing surveys. Fees were set locally. However, the law required that a $5 minimum per 100 acres of unappropriate land be fined. The County Court Order Patent Series is codified in Chapter 56 of the Kentucky Revised Statutes, and that is the law that is still used today. So that gets us right up to current times. The other set of records that I feel will truly help you not go completely insane while trying to figure out how to research Kentucky land patents are your census records. You have to remember that, again, showing that map of 120 counties, we started as one county, then our main three. We had 121 at one point, but we settled on 120. You've got to know what time period you're dealing with and what your parent counties are, what that information is. It will be priceless to you and help you stay sane when finding your land patent, working your way back through history. Key points to remember. This is another handout that's being made available to you at the end. Bear with me as we go through them. I promise you the handout will be very helpful for you to understand it and to pass on to your researchers. These are some things to remember when doing this process, any part of the Kentucky land patent process. Number one, the federal government did not issue land patents in Kentucky. So if that's the reference question you get, you automatically know the answer. There are no federal land grants for the state of Kentucky. Kentucky patents are authorized by the acts of the Virginia General Assembly prior to 1792 or the Kentucky General Assembly after June of 1792. Warrants do not identify a certain tract or location. You will never find that information on a warrant. That is not what the warrant is meant to do. Number 3, there is no master patent map that depicts tract locations. This is because there was overlapping of land patents and disputes over land ownership and mineral ownership for that reason. Patent maps can be constructed. However, once an anchor patent is identified and placed on a topographical map, many Kentucky surveyors and engineers are willing to work with genealogists and historians to identify their ancestors' land holdings. Computer software is also available for help plotting land records. Number 4, neither warrants nor surveys convey title. Every step in the patent process must be followed. The governor's grant is the only step that finalizes this patenting transaction. Number 5, military grants comprise a very small portion of Kentucky land patents. Most were authorized by purchasing treasury, state, or county warrants or certificate. Next, the only military warrants honored in Kentucky were those for service in the French and Indian War, Lord Dunmore's War, and the Revolutionary War. Kentucky did not honor warrants for service in the War of 1812, the Mexican War, or any subsequent conflicts. Those warrants had to be used in federal public domain states, such as Missouri and Illinois. This process kind of helps explain some of the migration patterns and the movement westward by some of the Kentucky veterans or assignees. They had to relocate to a state that honored those federal land bounties and warrants. If you have someone who is looking for land warrants for those military services, they will need to contact National Archives to obtain those records. The Secretary of State's Land Office is the repository for over 100,000 patent files containing warrants, surveys, and grants. Researchers do not have to travel to Virginia to research Kentucky land patent series prior to 1792. Those records are in Frankfort. Kentucky County formation must be considered when researching any facet of Kentucky history, and especially these land grants. Also, please note, there is no central registration of deeds in Kentucky. Deeds are filed on the county level with the county clerk, along with wills and marriages. As I always mention, and I actually will provide the link here again in a minute, courthouse disasters such as fires, floods, or even thievery are just what they are. They are disasters. Records that have not been microfilmed or removed for preservation are not going to exist. Moving right along, more key points. County tax lists from 1795 to the mid-1830s, available here at KDLA as well as the Historical Society, may provide some critical information regarding original land patent recipients. I think our next series will probably be on tax records. This moves really well right into that. Always, for yourself and for your researchers, always be creative when researching these land patents. Names were spelled phonetically in many instances. Another key piece of advice, research all of the land grant series for your ancestor, all 9 series of land grants. If you've established that your ancestor settled in northern Kentucky in 1798, it's possible that that patent was found or was filed in the South of Green River or the Tellico series. From 1795 to 1815, the Land Office issued patents under 3 separate series at the same time. The Old Kentucky series, the Tellico series, and the South of Green River series. Mistakes in assigning patents to the correct patent series were made. We're human. Mistakes were made. Okay, 3 more key points, and then I promise you we're moving on. Patents were issued to women as early as the 1700s. In some instances, they were heirs, finishing patents initiated by their husbands or other family members. In 1820, the Kentucky General Assembly allowed poor widows to patent up 100 acres of land without fee or payment. African Americans patented land in Kentucky prior to the Civil War. And here's the last tidbit for you. The land office holdings are limited to land patents only. Although application listing parents or family histories were not required, there are some instances where wills or other affidavits of descent are part of that patent file. So your researchers, if they decide to come here to the land office to research these patents, they may find some other tidbits of information. If they don't find it there, they can come see us here at KDLA. We'll be happy to help them find those other affidavits of descent, wills, or any other sort of records. One-stop shop in Frankfort. Okay, any questions at this point? This concludes our half-hour series on the patents part, but we are going to spend a little bit of time just discussing deeds records in general. So before we move on to deeds, any questions? Again, slides are going to be made available, the 2 handouts describing the series, as well as all of these key points will be available for download. Okay, moving right along to Kentucky deed records. Deeds are one of the most heavily used series of genealogical records here in Kentucky. They can be used to document your ancestors' residence, help you figure out their migration patterns, their heirs, learn information about their neighbors, and financial status of these ancestors. Deeds can sometimes be the only way to document a relationship or a marriage. This is especially true in early Kentucky when marriages were not uniformly recorded. It is critical to have your researchers search these records. There's so many clues that they can have in them. In Kentucky, there are situations where it is known that land was held, but a deed cannot be located. We're going to go through some of the tips and tricks here that may help you be able to figure out why they can't find a deed. And for me, the second part of this slide here explains the first part of the confusion. Along with land patents, a deed could be filed in any court of record in Kentucky within that county. And these are some of the county courts systems that may have been used. You have the Supreme Court of the District of Kentucky prior to 1792, the Court of Appeals, the Court of Quarter Session, the District Court, the Circuit Court, or the County Court. And again, disasters may affect what does or doesn't exist, and not all of the information is the same across counties. So you may find things, you may not. Depends on the county and the year, what you may find. A very unique filing system is used. The county clerks, I must admit, were pretty ingenious in developing their own systems of filing land transactions. When you are searching indexes, and I will say that most Kentucky county deed records are indexed, thank goodness. You're going to want to check both the grantor and grantee. When I was an intern many, many years ago learning this process, the phrase we used was the grantee pays the fee. That way you know who's purchasing the land and who the seller of the land is. Filing techniques observed wide variety. If you know that someone was inheriting land, it may be under H for heirs, not under the surname. If it was a settlement being established, it may be under S for settlement. It may be under W for will if the person is deceased. And it may be under C for commissioner if it is a commissioner deed. Also want to make a note to your researchers here to please make sure to check the index, for both the first and last name. There are instances in certain counties where all the indexes are by the first name, not the last name. It's very, very much so common, especially if the first name is also considered a surname. So at least there's an index to check. Be grateful for that. I just tell researchers to be extremely patient when searching land records. All right, the holding and transmitting of a title without a deed. If a person owned land by virtue of a land grant, it wasn't necessary to also hold a deed to that tract of land. The grant was held in place of the deed. People often devised land by will instead of a deed. Deeds were not necessary when land was sold, given, or devised via a will to a son, a daughter, or a spouse. If heirs kept the property, they could retain ownership for generations without ever having a deed made, which is rather frustrating in the genealogical community because you may not know. They may have not researched back to that ancestor yet to know which patent to search for. So if there's no deed in between there, that can really make some frustrations when you're trying to search through and back through generations to get to that original land patent. All right, while our heads are still spinning, let's move right along to deeds of partition and commissioner's deeds. If an estate had to be settled or partitioned among heirs, transactions would be recorded in a deed book. Some Kentucky counties have maintained separate deeds of partitions. In order to track land ownership under these circumstances, tax rolls can also be consulted here to see if land was given to a descendant. Commissioners would be appointed by the court, made deeds to fulfill the orders of the court. These records may be in separate books called Commissioner's Deed Books or Commissioner's Deeds. And again, as I always said, check under C. Kathy, I want some chocolate too. Anywho, always check under C for Commissioner. And it may not be in a Commissioner's Deed Book. It may just be in the regular county book under C for Commissioner. Again, grateful there's records to search, but there are so many records to search. It's quite confusing. Okay. We're not done yet. Yay! Okay. Deep breath, people. Okay. I didn't include a slide for this next part because I just think it's frustrating. There's also a section of records called Unrecorded Deeds. And some counties have files or books that are just called Unrecorded Deeds. This means that there were original deeds transferring the title of a property from one party to another in the clerk's office, county clerk's office, but they were unrecorded because the recording fee was never paid. There's also unrecorded deeds of partition, mortgages, and powers of attorney, etc. Yikes. So there may be files that relate to a piece of property or a tract of land from the original owners, but if your person was the one trying to purchase it that didn't pay the recording fee, it's an unrecorded deed. Not all counties have unrecorded deeds, but some do have some extra files that go along with it. Yay! Wasn't that fun? Before I move on to the availability of deed records, do we have any questions? Again, when researching deed records, you've got to remember your county formations. I included the county courthouse disaster chart here under our researchers tab on the KDLA website. There's also a county formation chart. It lists the counties alphabetically, the date county was founded, as well as the parent counties. So again, if you have a 5 or even 10-year time period that you're researching, it may be in that parent county. So you've always got to remind your researchers of that. We've had a question come in. Yes, there are a couple of different ways that you can tell which counties have deeds and which don't. You can look at the KDLA catalog. You can search the State Archives collection here. It'll tell you what exists. It may also have the information concerning the courthouse disaster. You can also have a call the Archives Research Room here at KDLA, and they can provide general information for you if you're researching across counties. It's also helpful just to contact the county clerk's office, see what records they have available there. Some of the earlier deeds are here at KDLA. Some counties choose to keep all their records. That's fine too. We've tried to microfilm all of them for preservation purposes. But there's a couple of different ways. It depends on the county and the year what exists, and it is a county-by-county basis. And there is no set like county chart of this is what exists for this county, this is what exists for this county. Every record series is different. So you'll want to start at the county level to see what information does exist by county. And again, the KDLA catalog is mostly up to date with its archival collections there and can be a good starting place as well. I, Karen, am so thrilled to share my notes with you because I can tell you they all came from the Secretary of State's Land Office and are available on their website. There is a section on the Land Office website just called Online Resources, and there are at least 25 cheat sheets on there that break down everything I have said today, point by point. So that is exactly where all of that information is available. Candy Atkinson, some of you may have heard her speak, is the land office guru, and is always available for questions, and is a great reference resource if you need to refer your customers, your patrons, to the land office. Candy is the person they will be dealing with, and she is just remarkable. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the availability of deed records. Keep these questions coming. They're really good. Almost without exception, most Kentucky deed records are indexed by both the grantor and the grantee. It's very rare to find a Kentucky deed book that doesn't have an index. Some deed books are indexed individually, and it'll be held, the first few pages of the book may be the index, or the last few pages may be the index. Some counties have separate index books that will cover large amounts of time. I'm talking 1792 to 1985. I've seen some indexes that are that large. If an index appears on a page within a deed, a note is usually made within the first few pages, so it'll be very easy to see. With that being said, though, the accuracy and completeness of some of these indexes is not always perfect. It's always a good idea to consult that original indexes. A lot of researchers, historical and genealogical individuals, have typed indexes from those earlier records. If you don't see your person, go back to that index book and type and check that original index for your deeds. And Alicia is getting ready to type in the web address for the Secretary of State's Land Office, and I'm going to add on there Candy's information. Candy is Kandie, Adkin, Atkinson. She is the main contact there at the land office and is very willing and ready to work with everyone and helping them with this process. Candy's also available for presentations and whatnot. If any of you have ever attended our Archives Institute in the summer, Candy's presented several times. I've gone ahead and switched over to our closing out slide here. There's 3 different files that are available down there for download. The Patent Series PDF and the Key Points PDF are directly from the Land Office website. The Introduction to Kentucky Land Records PDF is the presentation I've given here today. And now I'm going to take a look at Micah's question. And if you've got any other questions at this point, please feel free to go ahead and type those in. Micah, the frustration with land records is that you just have to dive in. I kind of presented the information backwards because I went historically from the past to the present, but most researchers are starting with deed information, which is a little bit easier. So by the time they get to the grant series, they can literally just type their name in on Ancestry.com or look in Jilson's index if they're pretty sure of who their ancestor was with the original patent, and be able to find that information. And again, the Land Office website has been digitizing and making available the surveys, the warrants, the grants, and the entries for all of these entire land patent series. They've been working on this project for close to 25 years, I want to say, and they all are available for download. All the informational tools I've used today and presented today are all available on that website. They even have an FAQ, of frequently asked questions. Land patents are just overwhelming and confusing. It's just a tough process. Encourage them to not give up in it, Micah. Encourage them to keep going, and they will find their information. And again, here at the archives at KDLA, we can help them with that. The Historical Society also has all of the land grant film. They can help them, or even just contacting the land office directly. There are several of us out here willing to help with that process. It's quite extensive, I'll admit. Any other questions at this point about the patents, the series? Make sure you download a copy of the files there. And if you think of questions later, or if you have a researcher with a specific question, don't hesitate to contact me. I can help forward you to the most most informed of our researchers here at the research room and land records to get you help with that. It is a huge amount of information, and I think my voice will be gone within the hour, but we got through it. That's what's important. And it's just no fun. You just have to get it out there, you have to start researching it, and you have to dive into it to understand it. I'll say this while we're wrapping up here and waiting to see if there's any more questions. The secondary source collection at the Historical Society and the Schmidt Library, several county historians and genealogists have transcribed local land patents and deed records for their counties. So some of those secondary sources can be good to consult as well. But again, I always try to go right back to the tried true record if you know what you're looking for and where to access it. At this point, I think we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up. Okay, here's another question. Is there anything that isn't digitized that you would find useful? Charlton, the short answer is yes, and that would be the deed records. Anything in the land grant series, the land patents, those are the only things that have been digitized. As far as county deed information, none of those are digitized. They'll either be the original in the books at the courthouse or here at KDLA or available on microfilm. I hope that answers your question. And even if you're not looking for a land patent or interested in this research at all, go check out the website. There's even a page that has unique entries from years gone by in the patent series that they've separated out. You might just find a neat little tidbit. Something fun to look at. See Daniel Boone's signature, or something about John Filson, just neat stuff.
Is that where the maps are?
There aren't really per se maps. You can have maps recreated. There are books out there. William Dollarhide has one on the census of Kentucky, and the maps overlay each other for each census year, so you can see where the parent counties are and where they exist. But as far as a map itself, those can be recreated. There may be some resources that the land office has in their office that they don't have online, but maps are quite confusing in this early process. Robin, go to the land office website and look at the military grants. There were 2 different military grant series, I believe. And if you've got questions about a specific area, call the land office. They will be able to answer your question probably more quickly than I could. The military warrants were very few and far between. But there's the West of the Tennessee River military series, and that was only 242 surveys. But again, they should be able to tell you exactly where those are located.
Yeah, because I think earlier somebody was asking about.
Yeah, not a big overgeneral map.
Okay.
But they can be created.
For the different grant series.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kathy, the slides are the third file located in the files pod there. That Introduction to Kentucky Land Records. Those are my slides. If they're not, tell me and I'll fix it. But I'm hoping they're there. You can. I don't mind you passing them out. But again, just reiterate to them that the land office is the main resource for the land patent in the series. All that information came directly from the land office. But I don't have a problem with that. And they can contact me with questions. Like I said, I can get in touch with the research room. All right, well, if there's not any more questions at this point, we're going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'll hang out here for another 5-10 minutes or so if anybody thinks of any other questions. And when you're ready to exit, just click the red X in the top corner, right-hand corner of the screen. And I'm hoping to goodness to get your certificates out to you no later than tomorrow morning. Thank you all for being here.